Me.
What's going on, guys? My name is 2Weemy, and today I'm going to be talking about Spider-Man Homecoming and how it is hurt by being in the MCU. Here we go. The Marvel Cinematic Universe, or MCU, is one of the most successful film franchises, with the first 3 Avengers in the top 10 highest-grossing movies list. Many other companies have tried to replicate its success, but even a successful film franchise like the MCU has its own problems that many people tend to overlook. Spider-Man Homecoming is a great example of how being a part of a big cinematic universe can hurt your movie. One of the issues with Spider-Man Homecoming caused by the MCU is the fact that it can't stand alone as its own movie, and it's a bad introduction to Spider-Man for those that know nothing about him. In the comics, the whole reason that Peter Parker becomes Spider-Man is the death of his Uncle Ben. Here's a clip from the show The Spectacular Spider-Man that illustrates this important detail about Spider-Man's character.
I should drop you. Take what you took from Ben Parker. But he wouldn't approve. With great power comes great responsibility.
In the show The Spectacular Spider-Man, it shows us a flashback halfway through the series of why Peter becomes Spider-Man. In Homecoming, it's not really clear why Peter is Spider-Man. There is a scene where Tony Stark comes in and takes away his high-tech suit and says you have to figure out why you are doing what you're doing. If Peter doesn't know why he is Spider-Man, then how is the audience supposed to know? The only way they would know this is because of previous Spider-Man movies, which is the reason the spider bite or Uncle Ben's death were not included. But if you ignore these scenes completely, it alienates the people that know nothing about Spider-Man. Even though there have been previous Spider-Man movies that have had backstories, doesn't mean that it shouldn't be done here. Homecoming introduces a new Peter Parker with a new life and new experiences, although the audience knows next to nothing about his backstory from this film alone. Uncle Ben is not mentioned once in this entire movie, and it makes me wonder if he even existed at all in the MCU. That is why it is important to address these things so the audience does not have to assume what happened and they are able to know definitely. Another issue with Spider-Man Homecoming being in the MCU is it focuses too much on the other MCU characters rather than Spider-Man himself. I asked one of my friends what she remembered about Spider-Man Homecoming, and the only thing she could remember was the Captain America PSA scene. That is pretty bad that the only thing she can remember about a Spider-Man movie is Captain America. Spider-Man is the most popular Marvel character and one of the most popular superheroes. He doesn't need other Marvel heroes to help him make his movie better. The setting in Homecoming, which is the MCU, outshines Spider-Man and the plot itself. The movie is so focused on the fact that Spider-Man is now a part of the MCU that it sacrifices developing Peter's character because of it. An example of this is how Peter is the same character at the beginning and end of this movie. We think he had an arc because of this scene.
Thank you, Mrs. Stark. But I'm good.
You're good? Good. How are you good?
But I'd rather just stay on the ground for a little while. Friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. You know, somebody's gotta look out for the little guy, right?
This shot is Peter telling Tony that he realized that he doesn't want to be an Avenger and he needs to focus on his small area and not the world. We'll throw that all out the window because at the end of the movie, Iron Man gives him the suit back, and in the next movie, he joins the Avengers. This movie focuses more on setting up the sequel, Spider-Man Far From Home, and referencing other MCU characters like Iron Man, Captain America, and Thor. So instead of getting scenes like this...
So, you got detention. You screwed up.
Instead, we should be getting good character developing moments like so.
If you're nothing without this suit, then you shouldn't have it.
It is okay to reference the comics and other MCU movies, but the story and characters should come first before all of that. Lastly, Spider-Man's core character traits are no longer faithful to the original character because of the MCU. In Civil War, we get our first introduction to Spider-Man, although it's more of a cameo appearance than anything. The worst part of this introduction is the mentor relationship that Spider-Man gains with Iron Man. I've already discussed earlier why Peter Parker doesn't need to be connected with another Marvel character to boost his popularity and can stand fine on his own. There is nothing wrong with having Spider-Man team up with other Marvel heroes. The issue with Tony Stark being a mentor for Peter Parker is that it fundamentally alters the character of Peter Parker. Peter has always had struggles in his life. Stan Lee did this on purpose because he wanted Spider-Man to embody all of us and be a relatable character. A core part of his character is that he has to balance his time and energy between protecting New York, his relationships, his aunt's health, paying his bills, and many other things. Many of these common Spider-Man struggles are eliminated with Iron Man as a mentor figure. He no longer has to worry about a job, keeping his apartment, or having enough money to get by because Iron Man is rich and can just give him whatever he needs. Another issue with the Iron Man connection is the tech suit itself. In the comics and other media, Spider-Man was never physically stronger than the enemies he would fight. Spider-Man almost always won his fights by using his wits to outsmart his opponents. A great example of this is in The Amazing Spider-Man #1, where he is able to beat the entire Fantastic Four by using their powers against each other. The tech suit eliminates any tension that would be had in any of these fights. The movie also never establishes all the abilities that the tech suit has. Therefore, any new ability could be introduced at any point, and it would not be out of the scope of what the tech suit can do. The suit had so many things it could do, like the insta-kill mode, parachute, and even a voice changer. The suit overshadows Spider-Man's powers and his intelligence. Why does he even need superpowers if his tech suit can do everything for him? It's okay if Iron Man gives him a new suit for a team-up like in Avengers Endgame or another movie. But having this be his default suit is very unfaithful to the character of Spider-Man. Before Spider-Man was introduced into the MCU in Civil War, people longed for him to be seen with the likes of Captain America, Thor, and Iron Man. But what once seemed like a blessing now seems like a curse. Spider-Man is pushed to the side by these other heroes even when he is the greatest hero of them all. This Peter Parker in the MCU is not the Spider-Man that I have come to love. This is sad because this is probably the first introduction to Spider-Man for a lot of people, and this movie doesn't convey why he is such a great character in the first place. Also, a really quick PSA before I wrap up this video. Yes, I have seen Spider-Man No Way Home, and I'm really glad that it fixes a lot of the issues I have with the MCU Spider-Man. This video is about Spider-Man Homecoming in isolation and not in comparison to the other movies in the MCU or even in the MCU Spider-Man trilogy. I believe that No Way Home is the true origin story of the Spider-Man that we know and love from the comics into the MCU. In that case, it makes Homecoming and Far From Home seem even more like an irrelevant waste of time. People were celebrating that Homecoming didn't tell the origin story again, but then they tell it anyway in No Way Home. It makes me wonder what the MCU Spider-Man would have looked like if we had started with a movie similar to No Way Home and continued from there. But we can only see what the future holds for the MCU Spider-Man. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this video. Please let me know down in the comments what you think about this video and what your thoughts about the things that I brought up. Hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to give this video a like and subscribe if you want to see more things like this. See you later. Bye-bye. Before I go, I would like to give a huge shout out to my Psyduck gods, where we got Skylander's Dude, Ignite the Fire, and Jackcraft7. I'd also like to give a shout out to my Power Rangers, where we got Blue and King Toast. And I would also like to thank all of my Gusto Cult members. I am so blessed by the generosity of all of you. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a wonderful day.